This is only his third game. Oh, by the way, Rodgers went 6-10. I think it was his first season.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So even if we get Love in there in 3 years, like I agree with that analysis that you laid out there, at least at this point in time. If Love goes 6-11, I guess now, it doesn't mean we still don't have the next Aaron Rodgers. You're right. We probably don't. Let's stop comparing him right now. But it's not like he needs to be at Aaron Rodgers in year 17 level in his first season, or even before his first season starting for us. So overall, I think I have enough confidence where at least he's up in his trade value, or at least in the next year or two, I can see him starting for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously see what happens. But yeah, I still think he's got a lot of upside. It remains to be seen, but we'll definitely. I'm excited to watch him in the next 2 preseason games this year and see if he can learn from the mistakes he made in the first game and keep getting better and seeing a little bit of improvement every week. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line too, because I think going into this game, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, the O-line has been kind of a question mark this offseason. We were down 2 Pro Bowlers, 2 All-Pros actually, and they've been kind of shuffling around. Obviously, we know they draft versatility, but we don't really know where these 5 guys are going to be starting, week 1. Obviously, Elton Jenkins is back now, but he didn't play last week because he wasn't off the PUP. But surprisingly to me, 4 of the top 5 offensive grades during that game, according to Pro Football Focus, were all offensive linemen. I was very surprised by that, but there we are. Josh Myers, obviously, he's our starting center. He's pretty dang good. Zach Tom, Caleb Jones, and Sean Ryan. So for a unit that we weren't really sure about, they seem to hold up pretty well, and I'm sure. Some of that comes from being able to establish the run pretty much right away, but also decisive decision making by Jordan Love, and just being able to kind of hold up in protection. What did you think from our O line? Do you feel like we should still be a little bit nervous? Do you think we're overreacting? How do you feel so far?
At the end of this episode, I want to ask, what did we really learn, right? Because it's always hard to judge these guys who might be 1s, but they're playing 2s or maybe 3s. It's hard to judge. But my eye test told me, like, oh my God, we're running the ball really well, and it took a few series for me to start thinking about, well, that's got a lot to do with our offensive line. So if we can get, even if we go into the first couple of weeks without Jenkins and obviously without Bakhtiari, I'm encouraged. I'm very much encouraged at what I saw. I feel like we shouldn't be surprised at this point. I feel like we go into almost every other season thinking the offensive line is our biggest question mark, and it ends up being what part of our biggest success in the season. So I don't have any X's and O's and specifics on saying why I think we're so good, but I mean, it passed the eye test to me that we look better. And oh, by the way, Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari, knock on wood, should be coming back in the first half of the season.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel yet. We'll talk a little bit about camp this week, practice this week, I should say. But it sounds like, according to some articles and interviews that have happened over the last 24 hours, that the O-line has been struggling a little bit against the Packers' defense and against the Saints' defense a little bit. So maybe we shouldn't jump to a conclusion that we're fine, but maybe there is some room for concern. I don't really know. They looked pretty good, but they've been struggling against the Saints this week, and we can talk a little bit more about Packers-Saints a little bit later on. Right now, I'd like to talk a little bit about a couple of our wide receivers and the run game. I think the biggest surprise for me during this game, and you can give me yours if you'd like to, was Goodson, the running back. I couldn't believe how he looked. His stats didn't jump off the page really necessarily, but he really seemed to pass the eye test. He looked kind of like Aaron Jones Jr. He was quick. He was also fast. He was accelerating through his holes. He was, making great cuts. So I was excited when the Packers re-signed Dexter Williams for some reason, because I've thought he's been, he looked really good the last last time around in Green Bay, but I think he has an opportunity now to actually make this team as running back 4.
Yeah. To me, like I said, I didn't know necessarily who was running each time, but it just felt like we were very efficiently moving the ball down the field, and I started giving more credit to the offensive line, like I mentioned earlier. But yeah, I mean, they go hand in hand, right? There's got to be holes there, then you got to hit the holes. So I think that's very promising to have even more options in the backfield, to have more depth.
Yep.
I would say my biggest surprise was our special teams in one specific regard. Amari Rogers, who is kind of on the back end, I'd say, of our receivers. But a 51-yard return laid out at the end of it on the sideline by Rashawn Gary, which I thought was pretty. They were laughing, so hopefully everyone is okay. But my biggest surprise was to see the ball be advanced on the kickoff, 51 yards by Amari Rogers, and then later, I think it was in the fourth quarter, catching a nice little out route, tiptoeing down the sidelines, and then diving in for the touchdown. I thought Amari Rogers looked good. Now he was against a lot of 3s and maybe 4s, but this is his year, right? Like, it's the year where it's like the prove it or move it type thing. So I was glad to see he had such an impact on special teams.
Yeah, that was really encouraging. And I wonder how much of that is to do with his work in the offseason. His confidence is growing, it seems, or our new special teams coach, Rick Bisaccia, maybe all 3. But special teams looked better. Certainly, they definitely seemed like they knew what they were doing back there for the most part. Yep. So that was encouraging.
Well, on that note, LaFleur or Gutekunst may have said that Amari Rogers didn't lose weight, but lost some fat, gained some muscle, and changed his body quite a bit this offseason. And kind of said that they had felt like he was really relying on his natural talent that had worked in high school and college, and now this year something seemed to has changed, right, where he's like really putting that effort in, and they see it at least in his body, and I saw it on 2 plays specifically in the preseason. So if that's true, I love it, right? I would love to have a couple surprise wide receivers make a big impact, because you know what? Someone's going to be out, hopefully not for a season, but we lost Tunyon for halfway through the year. I know he's a tight end, but he's a deep ball threat. And we lost Cobb for a while. So, we're going to need a full receiver room of very capable receivers, and I'm glad to see Rodgers might be one of those options.
Yeah, I don't think he's in any danger of being cut, but yeah, he may be the last receiver on the depth chart. I personally think the Packers will end up keeping. Well, now that I think this out loud, I'm going to stick with this. I think the Packers end up keeping 7 wide receivers.
7.
So I think, in addition to Amari Rogers, I think they end up keeping Samori Toure, who was a draft pick this year. I don't know that they want to risk losing him on the waiver wire, right away. So my guess is they keep him at least initially, but, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they keep 6, 7?
So for those who didn't Google this before the episode, I did. The normal number of receivers is 6 on an NFL roster. So, I like the thought that you go more with the simple fact that if you do what you just said, you have 2 or 3 question marks, right? It's not like you're confident in your top 3. Watkins hopefully works out. It's good to have some more veterans in the locker room, but he's injury prone, right? Or he has been, at least, so far in his career. We don't know what we have in Watson yet, and we don't know what we have out of Romeo yet. So I think I'll agree with you. I don't think I wouldn't be shocked if we went with 7, except for the fact that it's one more than usual. So I like that play.
Let's talk a little bit about the defense. We haven't really talked much about the D this episode yet. What did you see from our defense against the Niners, and bright spots?
Yeah, my biggest thing is the negative, and now we have among the best corners. We do have a couple of the best corners in the NFL, and they obviously didn't play for good reason. But the balls that Trey Lance threw up and over our secondary are starting preseason, guys. Wide open within 10. No one within 5, 10, 15 yards of some of these guys. So, I'm not concerned because those guys aren't going to be rolling out on September 11th against the Vikings. However, we've had injuries in that position. You have injuries in every position in the NFL. It's the NFL. It's 17 games. People are going to get hurt. And these guys need to step up. And I was not encouraged with what I saw on the back end.
Okay, yeah. I'm with you. I'm not overly concerned about that. And if you can have two really, really good cornerbacks on your team, you're in a good position. And if for some reason something like last year happened and Jair goes down or Eric Stokes goes down or Douglas goes down, we may have a little bit of depth, but at the same time we have three really good corners, and I'm not too worried about that. And to your point, it's preseason, and Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback for Niners this year.
Yeah, but okay, you're right. I'm probably getting over concerned there. But you said it happened to us last year. Well, what actually happened to us last year? We had someone go down, and then we picked a corner. I don't know what Rasul Douglas technically is, a corner off of Arizona's practice squad. And he ended up being one of the best, defenders, earning an awesome contract here, of the Packers this year. But that's striking gold, last year. So to have any thought that could happen again if one of these guys goes down is unlikely. I'll put it that way.
Well, right, but you're right. They're all three on this roster though to start the season. So, what I'm saying is
they are, but
if one of them goes down, then we already have two that are really good.
Yeah. No, I hear you. It's secondary, man. I guess maybe I'm still shell shocked from the 2014 to 2017 Packers where we just couldn't stop any of the any passing game, and we had Aaron Rodgers need to put up 38 points every game. So maybe that's where this is coming from, some insecurity there.
Yeah, well, to stay on the defensive track, hopefully we'll have Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark up the middle, and we're going to be getting to the quarterback so quickly that, we can't get beat down the field because we don't have time to let that play develop. But yeah.
What did you think of our defensive line?
I thought they looked good. We didn't have any starters in there really, but we do have, a couple of new players, and I think TJ Slayton for one. I think he's a second year for us, but he looked like he's getting a little bit better. It sounds like that is happening in practice as well. And then remind me, Chris Slayton is a rookie this year. Is that right?
Right.
And I think he also had a pretty good day. Seemed to be getting in there and making an impact and rush. At least getting some quarterback rushes or speeding up the process there.
And how many sacks? And if you don't know, that's fine. We had 3 sacks on the day, roughly. Does that sound right to you?
I've got it pulled up right here. Yes, we had 3 sacks. Yep. So
okay.
One by JJ or Kingsley Enagbare.
Yep.
Tipa Galalier and Kobe Jones, I believe, was the other one.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that was all later in the game, but right. I think this is the one part of our defense that isn't really warranting any conversation because none of our guys started, right? So it wasn't. It doesn't tell me very much, and we were playing against their number one quarterback, right? So I'm not too concerned about the D line, like you said. Everything so far in camp says that they're looking good. Hopefully, they're looking good because they're good, not because our offensive line is shaky, but I think that puts a pretty good wrap on at least the game. We're going pretty long here, but have you heard anything? It's a pretty exciting week up in Green Bay this week because the Saints are in town practicing with the Packers, something that we've done I think every year since Matt LaFleur has been the head coach. Any big headlines, any news, anything that you've heard that you would like to talk about quickly here today?
Yeah, there were a couple things that I read and I thought were pretty interesting. One, it sounds like that there haven't been any fights really during the practices, and I think that's probably because they're not doing one-on-one drills. They are doing 11-on-11 against the Saints, but they're not doing one-on-ones, Packers versus Saints. So I think that's probably going to keep that